Brothers and sisters, I come to you today to atone before Allah for my misdeeds against His people. I perpetrated grievous verbal abuse against the defenseless and entirely innocent people of Islam by very sincerely threatening nuclear genocide on the serious platform that is a Discord server. Little known fact, I was given permission by the United States government to do it. Not only did I have the codes, but the launch keys were in and the missiles were seconds away from being launched. All of a sudden, though, I received a flood of Twitter mentions telling me that the actions I described were morally wrong, a fact which I was completely oblivious to. In their sage wisdom, they proved irrefutably that my hatred was unjustified, assuring me that there is no meaningful correlation between Islam and the proliferation of rape gangs in Europe. Long story short, peer pressure succeeded in completely changing my mind, and the peacemaking spirit of John McCain inspired me to stop the nukes just in time. Since then, I've become a devout follower of the Prophet Muhammad. Suffice to say, I've been having a ton of fun. Of course, I get raped by my 40-year-old husband every so often, and I have to worship a black cube to indirectly please an ancient Canaanite god. But at least I get to go to San Fran and stone the out of some gays, and the cops can't do anything about it because California's a crypto caliphate. The only part of Islam I absolutely cannot get into is the anti-Jew stuff. Personally, I just can't support any sort of animosity towards Jews. I wouldn't want to be a Nazi now, would I? I assume most of you have noticed the policies surrounding hateful conduct on social media platforms, virtually tightening a muzzle on the head of anyone whose speech eludes the narrative. They're purging their user base, using pseudo-offenses as an excuse to squeeze out ideological dissent, and enforcing conformity into every internet community they can get their hands on. While the deplatforming can be partially chalked up to out-of-touch big tech CEOs who are just taking the path of least resistance, there certainly seems to be a coordinated effort coming from strident professional complainers who share an objective of removing reactionaries from all means of communication. Their job entails closely monitoring the posts of whatever online personalities they come across until one of them says something that's deemed unacceptable. When this happens, these Reddit homos speed to the scene, fueled by their lust for character assassination. If you pay attention to the identity these people put on when they do this, you'll notice it's not their conscious selves, it's a sub-personality. And since they're essentially possessed, they tend to expose things about themselves without even noticing. Because of that, it's very obvious that their behavior has been shaped by years of being humiliated and socially rejected by women. I know that reading will elicit people to accuse me of armchair psychology, but ask yourself this: why do they always speak like insufferable women? You see, I've had enough run-ins with these amoebas that I understand how they operate, and they never confront you directly. Instead, they default to saying things like, "This is not a good look." I know that sort of language immediately gets the blood boiling, but think about it. They're saying you look bad rather than saying you're wrong. The reason for that is that their objective is not to challenge your ideas, but to give you the feeling that a Stacey stare does. Because in their little pea brains, being a social outcast is the worst thing you can be. To put it bluntly, their whole MO is a post-hoc projection. They imagine themselves to be the Stacey that rejected them years ago, and their intention is to make you feel how they felt, inadequate. For example, when they say something is not a good look, ask yourself, who does it look bad to? The purpose of that little phrase is to make you imagine that there's a group whose opinions you should care about, but don't fall for it. They're powerless little prions who spend all day on the computer scouring the internet for people to harass. And there's a reason why they always defer to groups, which fits neatly into my theory. Men, in general, tend more towards antisocial behaviors than women, which is why they're not afraid of confrontation or expressing themselves in an unpopular fashion. These spiritual manlets, however, are feminine, so they defer to groupthink for everything, and their method of attacking you is saying, "You're not popular in our group, therefore you should feel bad." However, this too folds, since unlike the Staceys, they don't actually have a group they belong to. And on top of that, it'd still be meaningless, since the truth is anti-democratic. Popularity is utterly irrelevant to what's true and what isn't. So no matter how much cool guy web slang they conjure up and lob at you, there's still evolutionary dead ends who can't think their way out of a paper bag. The worst thing you can do when met with these miserable creatures is compromise. These people are vampires of fear and hysteria, so if you maintain your position and refuse to comply with their demands, they'll become increasingly upset as time goes on. Don't ever allow yourself to be silenced. These nobodies will never amount to anything more than sock accounts on Twitter with numbers in their handle, whose most powerful weapon is canceling you.